It's actually getting, I think the name of the game is not having those, getting more skilled at dealing with those. That's the name of the game, right, of life. That's what we're learning. And until we learn it, we haven't learned it. So the lesson will keep coming back. It's actually getting more skilled at dealing with the things. One thing you mentioned before, I want to go back to, which is, you talk about like leaning into your friends, and that's awesome. Trusting that you've got the support. Yes, awesome. And also trusting that you can do this. Leaning on you and the people around you, right? And I'll talk a little bit about the relatives and friends or anyone else that, here's just maybe just a bit more of my opinion and from my experience. I think I've learned to make it okay, let it be okay that some people, would step forwards and want to help and other people don't, right? Like I've also had experiences where certain people step forwards, other people, they're just there, and some people just disappear when things are harder. And that's okay. It's okay, because the only one expecting something is me. And it's from that expectation that I'm causing myself to suffer. They're just getting on with their life, they're just doing their thing, and that's what everyone does. Everyone's got their set of problems to deal with. And even the people that care and, listen, or like, oh yeah, that's really tough, a lot of times they'll just go back to their lives, because they've got their stuff. It doesn't mean they're bad people, at least, me personally, I don't think so. It's just, they're just dealing with their stuff, and sometimes some people will really go out of their way to help. But me expecting everyone to go out of their way to help is not reasonable. It's not, it's not a reasonable expectation. That's me kind of just making something up that's not real or reasonable. I learned that it's okay if people want to help, and I can receive that, and it's okay if they don't want to help or don't want to be involved, or would just rather step away until I've solved that thing. Then somehow they'll show back up in my life. Fine. I get to kind of decide, how close or far I have with them. Not as a punishment. It's just like, cool. That's how it is. That's how this relationship is. So I'm not going to expect more from it. I'm just going to place this in the outer circle or one of the outer circles, and these relationships more in my inner circle, and that in just acquaintances, or I don't have to punish them for it. It's just, the one expecting is me. So if I not lower my expectations, but just drop my expectations and let the relationship be whatever it wants to be, doesn't mean I don't put effort into it. But some people just want a certain level of closeness, and that's fine. That's okay. It's all good. They're not a bad person. They're just choosing. Or sometimes people have different phases. So it's better for me. I have more peace of mind, and it seems that the friendship or the relationship seems to last longer when I'm not injecting my expectations into the relationship, and just letting it be what it wants to be. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I know. And sometimes it's family members, right? And we might expect certain things from family members, but why? Why would I expect more, or less from certain? They're just another human. They just happen to be, they didn't choose it, were born into the family as I was. There's parts of my family that I don't have anything to do with them. Like my dad's side, I just cut them out. I don't want to have anything to do with them. And that's by choice. I might have been born into the family, but it doesn't mean I have to accept them, because they're fucking parasites. They're vampires. I've given them decades of chance, but that's how they've consistently showed up. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to have that in my life. They will just come in and destroy my life if they can, and they have. So no, that's not going to happen. So as much as I can choose, they can choose as well. And just because they're family doesn't mean I owe them anything or they owe me anything. That's all good. And I've learned that I can build my own life and have my own resources. So as much as if they're not going to help me as I'm rising up, they certainly shouldn't be up there when I'm, winning. There's no room for them there. So, you can also make the choices, and it's okay. It's okay if some of them want to not be a part of it, not support you. Maybe it's not so okay if they're putting you down. That you can start to cut out, and remove from your life. Not give space for that, basically. Because it's hard enough for you to deal with the thing. But then to hear people poking at you, well, that's harder. And also you can make a choice of not having that around you. I'm not saying go remove them from your life or completely cut them out. Sometimes it's as easy as just not just muting some of the conversations. Yeah, it's understandable. And we expect certain things from certain people. And I find when I remove my expectations, there's less suffering. It's tough. It's not easy. Just like that. Yeah, it is that. It is what it is, right? It would be nice if it was different, but it's not. And that's tough, to deal with. But the tougher part is, I found, my expectation of the situation or the people or person in it. And when I drop the expectation, I seem to suffer less. Let it be what it wants to be. Grieving what? Grieving the relationship? I'll say one thing about that, if it helps. Don't grieve a relationship that's not dead yet. But do you know what I'm getting at? Yeah. Because sometimes when I've had it's a not so great experience, in a family or friendship or a relationship, my mind tends to go, right, that's it. And actually, I'm the one cutting off that relationship. Now, I didn't say cut them off, but if I have a pattern of doing that, I'm going, whoa, hold on. I'm the one killing the relationship. You don't have to do that. I can let them be there. Some people you need to kind of cut out, because I think they've really proved themselves over time. Me personally, this is my opinion, that they've proved themselves over years and decades. They're not going to be different. So this is me expecting them to be different. So, and they just shouldn't really have the time or space, in my life. So yeah, that's done. But some, others they don't need to be cut out of my life, even though my mind goes, this is really fucking hard. They acted that way. Fuck it, I'm just going to cut them out. So, whoa, hold on. The grieving is just because I've cut the relationship off. And I'm grieving the loss, but actually there's been no loss. So, not all relationships need to be cut off. And therefore, you don't have to grieve for them, because not all of them are dead. Some of them might be, but perhaps the grieving is the letting go of my expectation of it. I'm grieving that it could have been a certain way, but it isn't, and that's hard and sad. And that's me just, learning to get, to terms of what it actually is, rather than my fantasy of the relationship, my expectation of the relationship. And when we can remove our expectations in the relationship, the other person or people get to show up the way they want, if they want to show up. Yeah. And rather than chasing the ones that don't want to show up, there's people around you that do show up, not just want to, they do show up right now. Spend time with them, connect with them and nurture those relationships, put love into those relationships. So as much to lean into it. And of course, there's a time to just lean and receive, pour into the relationship as well, and it will keep paying back. Yeah. It's not just lower, it's remove expectations that I have placed which are not real or realistic. So if I expect them to be a certain way, that's just not how the relationship is. I created that. So let me just remove that.